Good day everyone, I am Roselda Mansing together with my group mates Perly Mora and Clara Kunenko. We will present our performance task in Lesson 3.
Hello everyone, hope you're doing great today. I'm Perly Mora and for today's video, I'm going to discuss my answer in number 1 and number 3 questions in Lesson 3, Performance Task by Taichan. So without further ado, let's begin with question number 1. What is the importance of plant taxonomy? But before that, let's define plant taxonomy first. In order to develop a classification scheme, taxonomy, also known as systematics, studies or describes the differences among organisms. A huge population of organisms can be categorized and comprehended by using groups of those organisms. So I have here 4 importance of plant taxonomy. Number 1, to more systematically arrange plant taxa or components to enable easier and more efficient usage, understanding, and application. Sa madaling salita, ito ang pag-aayos ng mga elemento sa mga halaman sa isang higit pang sistematikong paraan upang mas maunawaan at magamit ng madali at mas epektibo. Number 2, to organize data, information, and expertise on plants, or ito ay upang ayusin ang mga datos or impormasyon at kaalaman tungkol sa mga halaman. Number 3, to describe the ancestry, origin, and genetic relationship of plants. To expound this explanation, ito ay upang ipahiwatig ang pinagmulan at genetic na relasyon ng mga halaman. And last but not the least is number 4. To describe the locations and habitats of plants on Earth, as well as the advantages they offer. So in Tagalog, ito ay ipahiwatig ang pamamahagi at tirahan ng mga halaman sa lupa at mga benepisyo nito.
Why is nomenclature of plants necessary? Nomenclature, or known as the International Code of Botanical Nomenclature or ICBN, were the naming activity under and published by the International Association of Plant Taxonomy or IAPT. Nomenclature is important in order to provide the correct name for a plant. Each plant is given a first name and last name, generally based in Latin, that is unique to each species. A clear reference system about the components of biodiversity is provided by the nomenclature of organisms, which also serve as a medium of communications. There are 3 important principles of nomenclature. Aim at stability of names. Avoid or reject the use of names which may cause error or confusion. Avoid the useless creation of names.
So let's move on to the question number 3, which is give the definition of the following terms. So here are the following terms: the kingdom, division, class, order, family, genus, and species. So let's start. So first, the definition of kingdom. So kingdom, it is the highest taxonomic level, such as animal and plant kingdoms. And next is division. So based on similar characteristics, observed on a few elements or organs. For example, the dominance of a sporophyte to a gametotype, presence of an ovule, seed formation, and several other morphological and anatomical characteristics. Next is class. The number of groups in this taxon is also not fixed, depending on the classification system. Separation is based on important basic differences that exist between the groups. And next, definition of order. Separation is based on a more convincing genetic relationship, which earlier had been detected at the class and division level. Next definition is family. Based on more characteristics compared to order, class, and division, for example, the morphological characteristics of reproductive organs. Next definition is the definition of genus. Genus involves more similar characteristics including a closer family relationship, but they do not cross. If a hybrid cross does occur, the offspring are normally infertile or will not survive. Phylogenetically, new genus arises and separates from the same parental origin. And the last but not the least, the definition of species. Species is the smallest group of organisms which can be consistently differentiated using morphological characteristics.
Good day everyone, my name is Clara Arconinco, and today I'm going to discuss the different taxonomic classification systems. So there are 4 types of taxonomic classification systems, and there are artificial systems, mechanical systems, natural systems, and phylogenetic systems. So let me first introduce to you the father of taxonomy, which is Carolus Linnaeus, a Swedish botanical taxonomist who was the first person to formulate and adhere to a uniform systems for defining and naming the world's plants and animals. The earliest system of classification, which remained dominant from 300 BC up to 1500 AD, were artificial systems. So artificial systems is based on the growth habits and the uses. And it's a primitive system. So primitive is a basic building block of a system. Artificial system means that this classification is based on a few characters that we can observe easily, such as the habit. So the basis of habit, we can classify the different angiosperms. For example, different angiosperms, we can classify them into trees, shrubs, herbs, etc. Or we can classify the types of plants on basis of their floral characteristics, like the number of stamens and carpels. So artificial system, which is mainly based on morphological characters, non-evolutionary features of the organisms, and not expressing the true natural relation species. So the morphological characters, non-evolutionary features, for example of this is the classification of plants according to the number and situation of their stamens, styles, and stigmas, which are the parts of the a plant or a flower. So the artificial system was introduced by Theophrastus and Dioscorides from Greece. So here is the example of the artificial systems of classification. We can see here Monandria, Diandria, Triandria, Tetrandria, Petandria, Hexandria, Heptandria, Octandria, Enandria, Decandria, and Dodecandria. So Monandria has one stamen. For example, is the Cana species. Diandria, 2 stamens. Example is the Veronica species. Triandria, 3 stamens. For example, it is many grasses. Then Tetandria, 4, Petandria, 5, Hexandria 6, Heptandria 7, Octandria has 8, Enandria has 9. So para yung yung shapes, 'di ba? Yung shapes makikita natin dito yung first three letters like the penta, hexa, and hepta, octa. So the pentagon has 5 sides. So this, if you talk about plants or the flower, petandria has 5 stamens. So parang same lang sa shapes. Has 5, then hexa 6, heptagon has 7, and heptatandria has 7 too. Octandria 8, then enandria has 9, and so on and so forth. Phylogenetic system is based on many characteristics of evolutionary interpretations from 1800 up to the present. It is based on also on evolutionary and genetical tendencies of the plants. And if we talk about the term phylogeny, it phylogeny it includes the knowledge of the ancestors, the place and time of their origin, the primitive, relative, and interrelationships among the major groups. So the evolutionary history of a group of genetically related organisms is called a phylogeny. So it includes ancestor species and descendant species. A phylogeny is usually represented by a tree diagram called a phylogenetic tree. So an early example of phylogenetic tree is Charles Darwin's Tree of Life. So here in the picture we can see the Tree of Life by Darwin. Now, in this diagram, Darwin was trying to show how he thought evolution had occurred. Then the tree shows how a species evolved through time from the bottom of the tree to the top. So in this diagram, Darwin was trying to show how he thought evolution had occurred. And then the tree shows how species evolve through time from the from the bottom, from the bottom of the tree to the top. As species evolve, they form new branches on the tree of life. So some of these species eventually branched into additional descendant species. So other species died or went extinct without leaving any descendants. So some modern biologists still use phylogenetic trees to represent evolutionary histories. Another example of phylogenetic system is the simple phylogenetic tree that is shown in a picture. So the tips of the branches represent genetically related species. So the branching points represent the common ancestors. A common ancestors is the last ancestor species that two descendant species shared before they took different evolutionary paths. So uh, in the tree figure, let's see the species 1 and 2. Here the common ancestor. Wait. In the tree, in the tree, sagad lamang ni. In the picture, the species 1 and 2 shared a more recent common ancestor with each other than with the species 3. Therefore, species 1 and 2 are more closely related to one another than to the species number 3. Next is the natural system. These systems of classifications are based upon overall resemblances, mostly in gross morphology, thus utilizing as many taxonomic characters as possible to group a taxa. A natural system of classification is a type of classification in which properties such as morphology, cytology, or the cell structure, the phytochemistry, or the chemistry, no. We got The natural system of classifications is a type of classification in which properties such as morphology, cytology, or the cell structures, phytochemistry, or the chemicals found in plants, embryology, and anatomy are applied to find similarities and affinities among organisms. Natural system is one of which reflects the evolutionary relationships of the organisms. In this type of classification, all of the members of the category, which are the family, class, order, genus, species, etc., are known or presumed to be a monophyletic, meaning they share a common ancestor. So this classification was given by George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker. The other contributor of this natural system of classification are Antoine Laurent de Jussieu and A.P. de Candolle.
The morphology. The term morphology refers to the study of shapes that are physically visible characters, often known as morphological characters. Shapes, size, colors, and other morphological traits of an organism's or its distinct components are described. Structure-related traits are referred to as morphology. Anatomy. Anatomy is internal characteristics of plant. It is form the backbone of taxonomy. Anatomy is a secondary xylem characteristics, epidermis, including trichomes and stomata. Palynology. Pollen characteristics including size, shape, aperture, and exane sculpture. The scientific discipline concerned with the study of plant, pollen, and spores. Palynology, it is invaluable to evolutionary and taxonomic research and can help to delineate phylogenetic relationships between fossilized and extant plants. Cytology, the chromosome number, structure, and habit. In the field of taxonomy, known as cytotaxonomy, organisms are categorized based on the properties of their cellular architecture. The most common criteria in cytotaxonomy for determining the relationship between two organisms is their chromosomal configuration of each individual. Chemical and molecular. Alkaloid, chemical and molecular. Alkaloid, phenolic, and amino acids contains protein, enzyme, and DNA. Chemical plant taxonomy focuses on the classification of plants based on their chemical composition. The use of molecular method in biology has made it possible to identify the genetic connections among individuals of various taxonomic groups.